the last class, we were looking at Adventist Home, page 127, paragraph 2.
I forgot to tell you, but you're right. Your stuff is still on the other side of the board, if you want it.
Oh, okay. I'll leave it for the moment now. I wasn't sure. Adventist Home, page 127, paragraph 2. And in the discussion of that, we spoke about the seat. And the seat took us, or I took you, to Revelation chapter 13, verse 2. So let's read that verse. The beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. So we got through most of this verse, but there were just a couple of pieces I wanted to tidy up. We decided that the dragon was whom? Pagan Rome in this context. Where did we find that? Revelation 12 is going to call it Satan.
Great controversy.
Great controversy?
I don't know the page, so I forget.
Is it 438.2?
438. We read paragraphs 1 and 2. We won't read that, but just make sure that it's in your notes, that you have a reference there somewhere. Then we said that he gives him, and the him that we said in this verse is whom? Anybody? Papacy, yeah? Relatively straightforward. Gave him his power, his seat and authority. What did we decide this power was? Military power, yeah? This is military power. Why does the papacy need military power? A couple of answers I had, sorry?
They don't have their own army.
Yeah, they're a church, aren't they? They're a church, they don't have their own army. And when does this happen? When does the papacy receive military power? 496. We said 496. So if you're going to say 496, what are we identifying?
The baptism of Clovis.
We're identifying the baptism of Clovis. And is Clovis pagan Rome? Yes, everybody?
Yes.
Who's saying no? Some people are saying no. So if it's no, then we're going to backtrack and it says the dragon gave him his power. So that must mean the dragon is who? Can't be pagan Rome then. You're going to say no. It must be France, I presume. Jonathan?
It's not pagan Rome in that sense that it is pagan Rome, but it's a descendant. Is a descendant. Is that how you say it? It's pagan Rome. It's 1/10 of pagan Rome.
Okay, so we did this, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do we prove that France is part of pagan Rome? Just a simple. I mean, there's different ways of doing it. It's a simple proof.
It was one of the 10.
Sorry?
It was one of the 10 kingdoms of that pagan Rome was divided into.
Okay, that's just a historical story that you and I might disagree on. That's your reading of history.
11:13. Revelation 11:13.
Revelation 11:13. What will that tell you?
To do with the history of Rome.
So Revelation 11:13 is going to tell you the history of Rome.
When we look at all excuse me, we want to look at all the kingdoms they transcend from Babylon. So, going back to what Brother Richard said and how, regarding the 1/10 of the city, so the word city in Revelation 11.
So if you start doing that and saying it's 1/10 of the city, then I'm going to ask you, what is the city? And why is it 1/10? So you're going to have to still go back to somewhere else. Revelation 11:13 won't be the answer to the question. We need to go to somewhere that's more basic. Brother Richard.
Oh,
Sorry?
I was gonna say it's on the charts. The 10 kingdoms. That's Frank's one.
Okay, we're going to go to the chart. Okay, that's fine. We could go to the chart. Brother Luke.
11. I've just got, looking at my notes, we were going into the two cities, Jerusalem and Babylon, and that's how we were getting to France, because France becomes the new manifestation of satanic power.
Okay, I'm not thinking anything that complicated. I don't know if we did this in class or not.
Daniel 7.
Daniel 7, okay, yeah, that's where we want to go to Daniel 7. Daniel 7 is where we're going to find the answer, really. We could go to Daniel 2, but even Daniel 2 is going to be problematic because of the way Daniel 2 is structured and the way the verses run. So if we're in Daniel 7, 7:7?
That's the 10-horn dragon.
Is that where you want to go, 7:7? Maybe so, maybe not. This is when it gets complicated for me because I'm doing different studies and I'm not sure what we did in class or what we did in another class. So, you want to go for 7:7?
Sure.
Yeah? Okay, let's look at 7:7. What's 7:7?
I have in my notes the 10-horn dragon is what that
Okay, so it's the fourth beast. We can see that. So if it's the fourth beast, we're going to line that up with, go back to Daniel 2.
Pagan Rome.
You're going to line that up with the fourth kingdom. Yeah? So you've got this fourth kingdom, and it's not going to identify it as pagan Rome. So how would you identify it as pagan Rome? Simply, where would you go? Where would you go to if you were trying to identify it? I mean, not a complex way, but just by inference even. I'd go to Daniel 8. Because in Daniel 8, you've got the Medo-Persians and the Grecians identified by name, haven't you? Yeah? And then it says the little horn. So by deduction, if you put all three chapters parallel one to another, you know this is the kingdom that comes after Greece. And if it's the kingdom that comes after Greece, you can go to the New Testament. You don't even need to really go to history, you can go to the New Testament. You can identify that it's pagan Rome. So it's pagan Rome, so let's just tidy that up. And if it's pagan Rome, how do we know that France is pagan Rome or not? What's the logic that we're going to say? Did we do this in class or not? Because if we didn't do it in class, I'm asking maybe too much of you. So I thought this was a revision, but it might not be. So just did this at the weekend as well. And
Well, we went to Revelation 11:13 at that point. When after France becomes Catholic, Revelation 11:13 talks about the great earthquake.
okay, so if we did that, if we went from here to Revelation 11, then we did pick up this point. What's the logic that we're going to say that France is pagan Rome? Are we identifying that this beast is pagan Rome? We're okay with doing that, yeah?
Yes.
It's an iron beast. We're going to pick it up with the iron legs. Sorry?
You compared it with Islam. That it's a satanic power.
Okay, so the satanic power is something different. It's not going to be picked up here. Because if we're going to use the satanic power, it's a different thought that we're trying to bring up when we do that. There's something different that we need to pick up here. So people wanted to go to 7:7.
Well, the beast has 10 horns, and one of the horns was France, right?
Okay, so the beast has 10 horns. Where are the horns located?
On the head.
Which verse is that?
7.
Sorry? 7?
7.
7, 7?
Yeah, it says 10 horns.
No, my sister said it's in the head. I said, where's that identified?
Oh, well, not there.
It's not in 7, 7, is it?
Yeah, it's 8. 7, 8.
It says in the head, does it?
Children and women and the baby.
Sorry?
Revelation 12:3, there's 7 heads and 10 horns.
Revelation 7.
So if we go to Daniel 7, we just did 7, 7. If we go to 7:20, and the 10 horns that were in his head. So we can prove that the horns are in the head. So if they're part of the head, what's that teaching us? Because the head, if this is the picture of the head is pagan. And the fact that they're attached to the head means they're what? They're part of pagan Rome. Because it's the same beast.
How do I know that it has pagan?
The whole beast is pagan Rome, isn't it? You can't prove it because it's not going to tell you. You have to do a lot of detective work, or at least a fair amount, which is why I said if you went to Daniel 2 and 7, you can line up the legs with the beast. Then you have to go to Daniel 8 and it tells you the two animals, the ram and the goat, are Medo Persia and Greece, and then you've got the little horn. So you have to do quite a bit of work to show that. Then you have to go into the New Testament to do that work. And maybe you could pull up Spirit of Prophecy quote, the Great Controversy one, for instance. So you're not going to pull up a Bible verse to prove that this beast is pagan Rome. It's not that straightforward. So if this head and the whole thing, the whole beast is pagan Rome, if it's part of the beast, it's part of the same system. Okay, so we did that. So we can go, so we're back in 13. So we know that if we can interchange between France and pagan Rome, that's all I want us to see, that this interchange can happen. Yeah? Why is that important to see when we're going to make application at the end of the world? Why would you, if you were going to develop an argument or develop a study, why would you want to set this up at the very beginning to identify that France and pagan Rome become interchangeable entities?
Because there's a new manifestation of satanic power.
Because there's a new manifestation of satanic power. Richard?
I think because you want to establish how the papacy is set up and how it's taken down.
Okay, so it's something to do with the setting up and the taking down of the papacy. So that's going to be something that you already want to set up in your argument when you're going to make an end-time application.
They both are a type for the United States.
They both are a type for the United States.
That's what I was going to say too. The United States, France is like the United States.
Okay, so
We were coming from Revelation 13 verse 2, and there it says his power and his we identified as pagan Rome, which also the Great Controversy tells us. So it's France, but how can it then be his? And I think that's why we were going there, to prove that France is pagan Rome.
yes, so that's what we're doing. So my question is, why is it important for us to even make this point? That we want to see that France and pagan Rome become two interchangeable entities. What would be the logic or the reasoning that we want to pick up when we make an application at the end of the world? So we've been looking at the nature of man, and the nature of man is what? Not the details of it, but it's threefold. But it's not only threefold. What else is it? It's also twofold. Ellen White's not going to tell you it's twofold, but she uses a phraseology that makes it twofold. What is that phraseology she uses?
Higher and lower powers.
Higher and lower powers. So you can see there's this relationship between the 2 and the 3. Yeah? So if you go to Revelation 13 verse 2, how many powers are there? 2 powers, yes? But in reality, how many powers are there? There's 3. It's pagan Rome, France, and the papacy. You've got this 3-2 combination that's running through this thread. So at the end of the world, how many powers come against God's people? 3. Yeah? Where would we find that? Oh, who are they? The dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. Where would you find that? Revelation 16.
Verse 13.
13. Revelation 16:13 talks about the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. Now, this causes us problems sometimes because the imagery that's being used sometimes doesn't avail itself to the point that we want to make. Because you can run this different ways. But who are the 3 powers at the end of the world? Without lining them up particularly, the UN, the USA, and the papacy. So if you use that phraseology, you've got 3 powers. What is the UN? Not who is it, what is it?
The dragon.
Worldwide.
That's the extent of its power. Is it a church?
No.
No? So this is a state or a government. And what is the United States?
Power.
Military strength.
False prophet.
A church or is it a government?
Government.
Yeah, it's a government. And the papacy is a church. So these 2 are one entity. So you've got a church-state relationship. 2. So this idea of having 3 and 2 is inbuilt into our message. It's an important concept for us to understand. And it's not a coincidence that it's part of the nature of man. Because God wants to do a number of things about the reform lines that we understand. He wants to teach us many things. One of them is to teach us about ourselves, and obviously to teach about end-time prophecy. So the reason we want to understand that it's the United States and the UN that form this government is because why is it important? Because we've just done it here we've just done it here back in history, that we make them interchangeable. So in Revelation 13 we make France and pagan Rome interchangeable entities, even though historically they're not the same. They do different things, different activities at different times, because we want to make specific points. It's important for us to see that, because at the end of the world you have the same dynamic. Yeah? You've got pagan Rome, France, and the papacy or the beast. So let's take the beast out of it. Which one is pagan Rome and which one is France? Yeah, we're here. So this is France, people are saying. Is that right? And this one is pagan Rome. Does everybody agree with that? What's that? Someone said something? It's a groan. I thought I heard something. Okay, you don't agree with that. So what do you want to put? The other way round. So she wants to put this as pagan Rome, and she wants to put this as France.
It would be easier to correlate because the UN is a group of countries. It'd be easier to correlate that to the horns because it's a group too. The UN to not to France. It's easier to correlate the UN to the pagan side.
Pagan.
Yeah.
So you disagree with her?
Yeah.
They're all disagreeing with you. Why are you saying that?
Because the USA transitions into the UN, so pagan Rome divides into France.
Do we understand that logic?
No,
I can't hear her.
I can't even hear you. That was deliberate, I guess.
The USA transitions into the UN. It comes first.
The USA transitions into the UN.
Yes, so you can't have France transition into pagan Rome, it has to happen the other way around.
Okay, so did everybody pick that up?
Yeah.
Yeah? Do we agree with that logic? Okay, what was the logic? It's an important thing for us to understand because this issue comes up over and over again in our message. So she's just said, what did she just, did anybody can rephrase what she said?
It's sequential.
Thank you. Did everybody pick that up? She says it's sequential in history, so it has to be sequential at the end of the world. Yeah? Who agrees with that? Because no one's agreeing with that.
Just because it's sequential?
Yeah. She says, the USA, go to Revelation 17, it's number 6. The UN is number 7. Is that the point you're making? And pagan Rome certainly came before France, prophetically speaking at least. So therefore, it must be this way because she's going to use a sequential history to make a sequential application at the end of the world. So why do we disagree with that?
Because of the connotations of sequential.
Because of what?
The connotations of sequential.
You make it sound like it's a dirty word. Connotations of sequential. Is that bad, sequential?
No, just I was unsure of the way you were asking. We use that term sequential has been brought up recently in the movement, so I don't know if you were making an inference to that, so I didn't want to readily agree because of that.
Okay.
In our last class as well, you have pointed out that while historically the events happen sequentially, here we have to do it line upon line.
Yeah? So
because they're happening concurrently.
Okay. Anybody else got any other thoughts? So some people said it's that way, and some people said it's that way. Who's correct?
The first way.
Well,
USA France.
so people are saying the USA can't be pagan. Is that right?
Yep. France.
Can't.
Because everybody says France, and she says no, and people said we disagree.
They're probably both right at some level.
So Brother Tyler's saying now it's totally correct because it's both.
No, because there are times where we can see the United States pagan Rome.
So do we agree with that? Would you agree with Brother Tyler now? He's saying it's both. So let me ask this question. In Revelation 13, verse 2, pagan Rome is identified as being what? The dragon? And if we went to verse 11, what does verse 11 say to us? 13:11. Sorry?
Another beast.
This beast is going to speak like the dragon?
Yeah, the United States is who?
Image of the beast.
If I can say is who, it says it speaks like.
A dragon.
So is she correct then doing that? Because that's what she's done. Even though she approached it from a different perspective. So maybe she is correct. Maybe Brother Tyler's correct. Okay, so what is the role of France?
The arms of the
Central.
So if this is 538 and we drop back to 508 and we drop back to 496, this is 1798. What's the role of the papacy? Sorry, France.
Put the papacy on the throne.
So it puts it on and then does what?
Takes it down.
So if we know that much information and we make an end time application, let's make an end time application. What is that event?
Something like
Take on.
1989.
Sorry?
Take on.
Take.
I
didn't know what you said. I didn't understand. I didn't hear what you said.
I was just, because if it's that way, if it was in that way in the past, would it be the opposite at the end?
Okay, before we make an application, I'm just asking what event are we saying that is? Brother Paul said it's the Sunday law. Do we all agree with that? Yeah?
Yeah.
Sorry? You think?
I wouldn't say that was when they came into power, didn't they?
Who's they?
Pagan Rome. Pagan Rome.
Pagan Rome comes into power at 538?
Sorry, no. It's not in my mind who comes into power, but when it says put on, what do you mean by put on?
France. Okay, what do we mean by that? Maybe it's not a good phrase, right? I can change it if it's not a good way of expressing it.
It's just not clear to myself anyway.
Sorry?
What that means.
Someone? Say it to me.
The throne?
What did I mean by put on and take down?
I didn't understand it.
Supremacy, no supremacy.
Sorry?
Supremacy and no supremacy.
Yeah, but I'm just gonna. You could just finish the sentence off.
Put on the throne itself.
So France puts the papacy on the throne. On the throne.
Yeah.
And France takes the papacy down or off the throne. That's what I meant by that.
Yep.
So this is the Sunday law. In French. We agree with that? So what would this be?
Instruction of the
17, Revelation 17:16.
What event? You make it sound like it's a trick question. It's not a trick question. This is just. I shouldn't assume it's an overview because I don't know what everybody's understanding on this class is. So it's not. I'm not asking any trick questions. Just asking a basic understanding. If this is 538 and this is the Sunday law, what is this? Time of the end comes after the Sunday law.
Close of probation.
Close of probation.
Yeah, makes sense for the end time.
Daniel 12:1. CFP. Does everybody agree with that? So if we weren't sure about that, would it be too much to ask how we go to prove that? At least one way of doing it. There's always different ways to do it. Would anybody attempt that or not? How we make this application? Fred's looking nervous. So all I'm trying to understand is how we go about constructing our lines when we make one line into another line. So we've said 538, Sunday law, 1798 is Daniel 12:1. So did this throw people out because Sister Shamila said this is the time of the end? Yeah, so the time of the end is the beginning of something, and we're just saying it's the end of something. Does that cause us problems? This is the problem. If you start taking things sequentially and run through that, you get into an overly simplistic view of things. But if you don't and you start taking things line upon line, it becomes extremely complex because you have to juggle things around now. Waiting for me to do something.
But we see also in that there is an end of the modern papacy, so to speak. There's the beginning at the Sunday law, and we know that there is an end of the papacy. So it would be fine for me to consider 1798 as the end of the papacy nowadays.
Did everybody understand that? Mm-hmm. See, 1798 can mean different things. At one level, it's the beginning of something, but it's also what? The end. So Brother Jonathan is doing what this line is teaching, because I think maybe I'm reading into what you're thinking. Often we talk about the time of the end, and the time of the end we often think is beginning something. So that would be this history is the beginning of something, the beginning of the time of the end. But that wasn't what this line was teaching. This line was teaching this history. So he says here it was the wound or the deadly wound that's inflicted upon the papacy. And that's what he's marking here, the death of the papacy. My sister?
So then, in our application of time,
We put 1989 if we're using the same logic under 538. Because Reagan we were putting the papacy back on the throne, starting to.
So we were starting to do that long before
So what?
1989.
Can we put a date there though? Like if we were putting it on our line?
Of when the work is accomplished.
Or those being set up again? So like, yeah.
So if you go back to the original verses, 508, 538, where are we even when we're doing this? Daniel? Daniel 8?
Yeah.
Are we Daniel 8?
Daniel 8, 11.
Daniel 8, 11?
Yeah, we went through the daily and all that.
Daniel 13? 8. Daniel 8, 13. We did cover this in class. Because the term daily is used 5 times in the book of Daniel, 3 times in chapter 8, 1 in 11 and 1 in 12. And you have to use the correct verse in the correct place. Because if you're going to use Daniel 8 verse 11, is Daniel 8, 11 even this history? It's not. Daniel 8, 11 is hundreds of years before this. It's not this history. So we're going to use 12, 11.
Revelation 14:8.
But it's not going to mention the taking away of the daily, or the placing or the setting up of it. All I wanted to know is where we get these dates. So it tells you on the chart straight. It says Daniel 12:11, taking away of the daily, and then it's talking about the placing or the setting up. Brother Jason.
Daniel 11 verse 31 mention about the daily there.
Yep.
They mention about 496.
So 11:31 and 12:11 are very similar passages. One says to place the daily, and one says to set up the daily. So that's the realm that we're in here when we're doing that. So the point I wanted to make, when it says take away the daily in 12:11, it's a specific date with a specific event, and then it says to set up or to place it, which is afterwards. It's 30 years later. So that's a specific event as well. So without making it too, because I didn't want to go into it in a complex way, just wanted us to understand the relationship between this history here as it brings us to the Sunday law. Because the conversion of Clovis has some application at the end of the world. The taking away of the daily has an application, and 538 would have an application, so would 1798. Yeah? So he's going to die here, he's going to die here. We've made that application. We can do that, yeah? By 538, what has happened to the papacy? He's now doing what? He's subjugated all of Europe, and the 3 horns have been taken down, and now he doesn't have any opposition. Yeah? So he's ruling supremely. That's a phrase we often use. He rules supremely with no opposition. Did we do this in class? When is he given his seat? Because I don't have it in my notes. So I don't think we covered that when the giving of the seat is. Sorry? 3:30. So if he's going to have his seat in 3:30, why do we say he's ruling supremely here if he's already got his seat 200 years ago? Sorry?
I was thinking that he doesn't have a military power yet.
Because he doesn't have a military power yet. Fair enough? Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll put here he's ruling. When's he going to be ruling at the end of the world? Must be the same history then, mustn't it? So how do we prove that, Brother Jonathan? You took us to, I think it was you, took us to Revelation 17.
Just about that was would be my proof text that the papacy has an end.
So I'm not looking for the end per se. I'm looking for this application here.
Yeah. The 10 horns. They give.
Give us a verse. I'll give us a verse so people can read it.
Verse 13.
Okay, 17:13 is going to tell us what?
That the 10 horns give their power to the beast, and of course we know that that there's an eighth kingdom, which is one of the seven.
So 17:13. Did you say?
Yeah, I said 13. These have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. Tells me that the beast has ruling power in the future.
Everyone agree with that? So maybe we could read verse 12. And the 10 horns which thou sawest, the 10 kings which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings, 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. Yes, so this is 1 hour. This was 17, 12 and 13. Do we agree with that? Yes? So he's ruling supremely here for 1 hour with the kings, which was typified in this history. Yes? So who puts him on the throne? France. And who takes him off the throne? France. And who did this work here? You were saying, you mentioned Ronald Reagan. So this is the United States that's doing this work here, yes? So we've got the USA. So if the USA put him on, who's going to take him off? USA. So France is the USA. We can see that? Yeah? So where do we get the USA being pagan Rome? How are we going to make that happen? What would be the reasoning behind that?
Can I ask another question?
Go ahead.
I agree with you, France and USA take the papacy down, but in Revelation 17:16 we read, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire.
Revelation 17:16?
Yeah.
Is this a question or a statement?
The question is, I understand that the United States is France at the end, but I'm not too sure if I would put United States there. I would prefer United Nations.
So now you're going to put United Nations. So you'd have to say United Nations did it at the beginning. You're going to use an alpha and omega, beginning and the end.
You can't even call the UN though without the USA pays 50% of the UN bills, so they're the same thing. It's still the USA.
Yep.
But the 10 horns, I'm just taking the symbols here, it's the 10 horns who so to speak, killed the papacy.
Okay.
And it's not the...
So let's go back into this history. What happens in 538? Papacy's going to rise to the throne. What else happens?
Persecution.
Persecution?
Church goes into the wilderness.
Church goes into the wilderness because she's going to escape persecution. With respect to this theme.
What do you mean this thing?
Sorry?
What do you mean this thing?
This theme of ruling.
It couldn't rule until it had taken over.
Sorry?
The third obstacle is removed.
That's what I'm saying.
Removed.
Justinian, you have Justinian's decree.
So you're going to put 533 here.
The transition from the fourth kingdom to the fifth.
Okay, so let me give you a clue there. So what's happening here? There's a Sunday law here. There's a Sunday law here. Problem with running things sequentially, which you can do historically, is if we're going to say, just at a basic level, this is the history from the 1980s to the Sunday law. So if we said that, that would mean that if this is Constantine, Constantine is what, pagan or papal? It's pagan, and he's going to make a Sunday law. That must mean the United States, if we're going to make that application, would have made Sunday laws or some kind of Sunday law long before the 1980s. But before the 1980s, what religion was the United States? It's Protestant. At some level, you might disagree with that, because you could go back to April the 19th, 1844, and make it Catholic, I guess, at one level. But at least on the surface, it wasn't doing that. So we normally take this Sunday law and put it where? In our line. Somewhere in here, don't we? Yeah, so we're going to get this and place it here. So over and over again, you see the problems with running things sequentially at the end of the world. It's not that straightforward to do that. So, does everybody understand what I just did? What the point I was trying to make?
Yeah, but I don't understand the connection then between the USA and paganism. I get the connection between France, but I'm not getting your point with the...
Okay, so the United States, sorry, the UN, which is this one world government, if you go right back to the very beginning, it's always been spiritualistic in nature. And it's never changed its form or its religion. But the United States changes the form of its religion. It changes from one religion to another. So back here in 321, where if we're going to make this a symbol of pagan Rome, it becomes the United States, because here Constantine changes from paganism to papalism. It changes its religion. And we know that's what America is doing or has done. Spiritualism never changed its religion. The United States did. It did it back in 1844, and it's been just a progressive work. But we make a specific marker about the Sunday law that Constantine puts in place in 321, and we say that must have some application at the end of the world. So the United States is going to make some kind of Sunday law that precedes the 538 Sunday law, because we're saying this is the Sunday law. That's one of the reasons why. Yes, so this would be what we call the national Sunday law, where you prohibit Sabbath keeping and you promote Sunday keeping, and it's enforced by law. But the law that Constantine makes here at the beginning doesn't have all the trappings of this law here that the papacy makes. It's the start of this process. So the point all I was making is that it's pagan Rome that does this work, typifying the work of the United States, not typifying the work of the UN. And so if this is the United States, and this was the build-up from the 1980s to the Sunday law, we don't have any markers to say that the United States made Sunday laws here, but we certainly are making an application for this Sunday law in this history somewhere, where we say there's going to be blue laws of some kind, they're going to start adjusting or repudiating elements of the Constitution. Even if it's a Sunday law in some kind of type, all I wanted to see was this 321 cannot run sequentially at the end of the world. This then gets taken as a separate component and gets tucked in here somewhere. So there's this danger if you keep on running things sequentially.
I just want to share, if you're looking at the line from 538 to 1798, you know that the papacy ruled for 1260 years. And then if you bring it to our time, you see that you've got the ruling with the 10 kings for 1 hour. And if we're lining up 538 with this universal Sunday law, then you know that if it's with that 1 hour, then you know in our time that you already have the UN is fully on board, and the sovereignty of nations is gone, even though the United States might be playing a pivotal role in the UN, but you've got the UN, or there you've got France, USA, right there. at the end of time, you've got the UN. It is UN there.
And that's the very point that Brother Jonathan's making.
Yeah.
Brother Larry.
For me to try to understand the USA as Rome, I go to Revelation 17, verse 11. And it says, and the beast, that's the fourth kingdom, that's Rome, out of the 8, that was and is not, even he is the 8th. So the 8th we know is modern Rome. Right? And modern Rome typifies the threefold union. The beast, the dragon, and the false prophet. So if you have the 4 kingdoms of Daniel 2, the 4th kingdom is Rome, and then you got the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. And the 5th is papal Rome, the 6th is USA, the 7th is United Nations, and 8th is modern Rome. So the USA in the end can typify modern Rome because it's the 7th it was of, or it's the 6th it was of those 3. Beast, dragon, and false prophet. Am I making sense?
Does that make sense to people?
Does it make sense to you?
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I don't think it doesn't make sense to anyone else, just you and me. And maybe 1 or 2 others, because no one's saying anything. You know, I don't mind if we don't participate and you know, we remain silent, but you walk away from the class just as, I don't want to say ignorant, but just as uneducated as you came into the class. And you know, somewhere down our experience, we have to stop doing that somewhere along the line, I presume, if you want to grow. If you don't understand things, you need to pipe up and say something, because if you're not going to say things, I'm not going to explain things to you if you don't say that there's a problem, because I'm assuming that there isn't a problem. So I'm just going to carry on moving along, and we don't end up getting anywhere.
So if we put on the board, you know, if we look at Babylon, Medo Persia, Greece, and Rome, that's the first 4 kingdoms of Bible history. And then who's the 5th kingdom? That would be our next question. Who's the 6th kingdom? Who's the 7th? And who's the 8th? Because it says here that the 8th and is of the 7th. So when we go look at of the 7th, that's the United Nations. And the 6th is the USA. So those 3 all make up modern Rome.
Do you all agree with him now?
Yes.
Because I don't. I'm not going to do that now. I do really.
Well, I want to learn too. If that's wrong, I want to.
We'll do something on 17 in a bit.
Okay.
Let's just come here then. There's a Sunday law here. The only reason I mention that is because I want to show you can't do this sequential thing. I want us to really understand that. But so that's not what the point I want to make. Let's come back to here. There's a Sunday law in 538. What is going to happen now when you make this Sunday law in 538? What's going to be the consequences of that? By whom? Persecution by whom?
By the armies of the papacy.
The armies of the papacy are going to persecute whom?
Those who aren't accepting, I guess.
No. Okay, maybe, yeah. Okay, I understand what you're saying. The consequences of... I meant to the person who makes the Sunday law, sorry.
Oh.
Person who makes the Sunday law, what's the consequences of that?
National ruin.
Sorry?
National ruin.
Who's going to be ruined now? Pagan or papal Rome? Sister Shimala? Who said? Oh, someone said something? You said it, my sister?
She doesn't understand. I don't
Pagan
understand
Rome.
either.
Sorry?
Pagan Rome.
Pagan Rome's already finished.
So it's papal.
France.
What happens to who? Sorry?
The papacy is going to get eventually taken off the...
They said national ruin, and I said, who's going to be ruined now in 538? Papacy or Pagan Rome? Sorry? Brother Tyler?
I don't think the ruin's happening in that moment. I think it's it's going to happen eventually.
Okay, so it's a process.
It's a process, yeah.
So I'm asking who's being ruined now?
The papacy is going to get ruined.
So it's the papacy, it's not Pagan Rome, it's papal Rome. Do we agree with that? Because it's different to what some people say. So once you break this Sunday law, now it's the ruin of the papacy. Who's going to ruin them?
France.
No, that's way back here. Who's going to ruin them because of the Sunday law? You did this on Thursday. I wasn't here on Thursday.
Islam.
Islam, isn't it?
Oh, the world, yeah, the world.
Yeah? Isn't it Islam that's going to do this work now? Yeah? Okay, so here, once a Sunday law is made, Islam is involved. Yes? We agree with that? So let's put this 321 law back here, which is a Sunday law. And I'm going to get this and I'm going to flip it and bring it in here. Sunday law 1, Sunday law 2. Yeah? Who's making these Sunday laws? Who's making this one? Pagan Rome is making this Sunday law. When Pagan Rome makes a Sunday law, what's going to happen to it? First 4 trumpets. It's going to punish them. At the end of the world, when Pagan Rome makes a Sunday law, who's going to punish it?
Islam.
Islam is. And who made that Sunday law? Pagan Rome. But who's Islam attacking today? The United States. So you know that the United States is a symbol of Pagan Rome.
You said earlier, a minute ago, that in 538, that the papacy is going to begin to be ruined by, or attacked by Islam, the 3 woes.
Yeah.
But it's against them, but it's really against their structure, their government, but their civil government, because it's against the Byzantine Empire, you know, and it's not really against the papacy itself, you know. It's against its colonies and against its armies and against, you know.
Do we agree with that? Yeah, so let's set up a structure then. My graphics are terrible. This is a picture of Europe. Doesn't look like Europe, I know. Okay, here's Rome in the middle. The papacy is set up. What's in the west? What have we got set up in the west? If the Rome papacy is in the middle. Sorry? It's not just France though, is it? Okay, so I'll put the 7 horns.
Okay.
Yeah? And I'll put in brackets the 10, because it's 1/10. Okay? And who's on this side?
Yeah.
So we could say
Constantinople,
East Rome, but we'll say the Byzantine Empire now.
Yeah.
We're going to use that phraseology. Okay? So this is so this is the Mediterranean, and this is North Africa. That looks like that, and then it goes into the Black Sea. So this is North Africa. And what's this? This little pinch point. This is the Straits of Gibraltar, and this is what? This is the Bosphorus Straits. So this is Constantinople here, or Turkey. Yeah? You know my spelling's not good. The Bosphorus Straits. And this is the Straits of Gibraltar. So the Straits of Gibraltar and the Bosphorus Straits. What is... Oh, and what's over here? Islam, yeah? This is the Arabian Desert.
Yeah.
So, what's the role of these, we'll say this one trumpet, the 5th trumpet, what's its purpose in life? What was it created for? To kill and destroy. What? Sorry?
Third part, the Bible says.
To kill and destroy people who make Sunday laws.
Yes.
So who's made the Sunday law?
This is 538 Sunday law. So
Yeah.
it'd be the Byzantine.
They didn't make the Sunday law, it's the papacy that's made it here.
Oh, okay.
Papal Rome. So
Yeah.
Papal Rome's made the Sunday law here, And there's no way that you're going to launch an attack against Europe via a navy. It just will not work. Yeah? They know that. So you only got 2 ways to get into Europe. What are the 2 ways you can get into Europe?
The 2 straits.
The 2 straits, it's the only way you can get across. In a realistic, sensible way. So they're going to try both ways. So if you come here, who's going to protect you? If you're he's coming for you, who's going to protect you? 7 horns. If you come here, who's going to protect you? Byzantine Empire.
Yeah.
And if you go and check, history, this is Spain here. So if you go to southern Spain, all of its architecture, its culture is what? It's Catholic now, but if all its architecture, a lot of it, we call it
Byzantine, Islamic.
It's not Byzantine. You called it another name. You called it the Moorish or the Moors. Yeah. It's all the architecture and a lot of the culture is Islamic, because this is the route that Islam wanted to take to get into Europe, and they were stopped. But they're also going to try and come in this way, and what happens? They're stopped. So the armies of Rome, it's got 2 armies. The armies of Rome are stopping Islam from coming and doing its work. And we would call this pagan Rome. And if we just call this France, you can begin to see why the United States has these similar characteristics. You don't see Islam coming and destroying these 7 horns, any of them. Who did they end up destroying? Byzantine Empire, which is the Eastern pagan empire. This is why, this is the point that Brother Tyler's making here. In the 538, even though they're not actually attacking the papacy, they're attacking the army of Rome. And the army of Rome is who? It's pagan Rome, it's not France. In this context. Can I think we know that kind of history.
So in our context, you're saying that Islam's going to be attacking the UN armies and the US armies based upon that diagram?
No, based upon that diagram, the Byzantine Empire is identifying that it's the United States that are under attack, primarily.
Okay.
Because...
Well, what about the other side then? Are these the United States on both sides of the papacy here?
All I'm saying is that the United States has these 2 roles. One role is as France, and one role is as pagan Rome. It fulfills both roles at the same time. It has all the characteristics of France. It places it upon the throne and takes it down, but it's also the primary protector of the papacy. That's why America is taking all the hits. That's why they're the ones that are at war with pagan Rome, primarily.
The Swiss Guard is the primary. We're the second.
I guess, yeah.
So what you're saying is symbols have more than one meaning?
Yes. So America takes both of these roles. That's the long version of why we can make France and pagan Rome the same entity. It has implications when we think about end-time prophecy. It explains what's going on. If you want to know what the issue is between Islam and the United States, it's because the United States has taken the role of the Byzantine Empire, the primary protector of the papacy. That's why Islam is after them. It also teaches you, even though we do a study of Balaam, Numbers 22, that at the very end, Islam isn't even going to accomplish its task. Yeah, its task is to punish people who make Sunday laws, and it failed in the 5th and the 6th trumpet, first and second woe. It failed then to do its work, and it's going to fail again. Yeah, we can see that. Sometimes we don't talk about it that way, but it will fail in its mission, and so someone has to clean up the mess. And who's going to clean up the mess? The United States. It's the United States that are going to clean up the mess.
So in essence, point on that thread of thought, Islam failed during the time of from 538 to 1798, and it was France that came and just pretty quickly did the work that it couldn't do, and it just walked right into Rome. So that would be the same thing at the end. They're going to fail during this time, but then the United States, France, is going to come in and just do the work.
So we've done seat. The seat, we're replacing the seat. I think someone already said 3:30. So if we're placing the seat at 3:30, Constantine moves. Why do we place the seat here at 3:30, not the seat here at 5:38? Without going into the history or anything like that, what principle or concept is that teaching us? If you think about it, Adventists, if you go to the Great Controversy or any evangelistic campaign, where do they place the papacy ruling the world? Here, yes? Is that correct? I mean, it's correct. It's, you know, they're ruling. You've got a Bible verse, Revelation 17, it says they're going to rule for 1 hour. Yeah? All opposition has ceased. So you're at 5:38, it's going to rule for 1260. So Adventism is correct in its approach to Bible prophecy because it's led that way. And you have to do a lot of digging under the surface, dig for hid treasure, to develop the arguments that we use. Because what is our argument? That everything is progressive. If you don't understand the progressive nature of prophecy, we don't even have a message. It's the premier thing that we focus on over and over again. If you don't see that, you don't get anywhere.
But that is what I was taught in the church with the, like evangelical series or prophecy series. It's hammered home. The dragon gave him his seat, his power and great authority, his seat in 3:30 when Constantine moved from, but then that's what you're taught, and you get the dates, the different chronological dates. I'm saying that because understanding that, yes, we say that the papacy rules the world at the Sunday law, but how is it that we get it? How is it that the church has gotten it to where we don't understand the sequential movements when it is something that is taught?
So you're asking, why is it that the church doesn't understand prophecy? I don't know. We're messed up. We're in rebellion. I don't know. Well, we do know. Because we've got a progressive destruction in 4 steps that lead us to this point, Brother Tyler.
It's the same kind of principle with the latter rain, I guess. It's if you don't understand that progressiveness, you don't understand how the latter rain works. You don't understand. Everything's just at a point. You lose the period, kind of. If you want to put it that way.
And is it wrong?
No.
Because what the focus is on, it's not so much as even the focus on the point. What we haven't understood that it is progressive, but we focus on what point? The end point. Adventism focuses on the end point. Why do we focus on the end point?
Advent.
The Advent.
That's really the time we're living.
That's what the whole point is.
No, let me rephrase that. I'm talking about at the end of the world. Say if you went to 1989 to the second Advent, is that what you mean by the Advent? Yeah?
Focus on the end because that's the time we're living in.
Okay. Sorry?
Because Ellen White does.
Because Ellen White does. We didn't invent this idea. Not only does Ellen White, the Bible does the same thing. If you go to Revelation 14, the everlasting gospel, what does it say in verse 6? It says the gospel message is given to whom? Does it say the church?
No.
It doesn't say the church. It says the world. And who's giving that message to the world?
Church.
The church is giving the message to the world. Yeah? We're funneled, inspiration funnels us into this understanding that our focus should be at the end. And here we come up, this band of disgruntled Adventists, following David, and we say, by the way, you got it all wrong. Because where should the focus be? The beginning. And this is the problem that we have when we deal with our church brethren, is that we're saying you need to focus on the beginning, not the end. And it takes a lot of effort to prove that and to show that. And I think a lot of the time we don't know how to do that. Maybe we don't even realize that that's what we're supposed to do. But that's our task, to show that it's a progressive nature, and our focus should be on the beginning, even though inspiration tells you it's at the end.
But then even though, you know, we're funneled that way, doesn't she say you can't have a third or a second without a first? So doesn't she, even in that sense, kind of points you back to having a clear understanding to the beginning?
I guess, if I'm not sure what you mean by it, you can't have a third without a first and second. No, I know the passage, I don't understand what you mean by that.
So I'm saying then, how are we going to have the third, which is the son-in-law, without understanding the progressive nature or the build-up to it?
Let me ask you a question, totally unrelated to what you've just said. I'm not going to, just for us to think about. What's given here? First angel's message. It says what? Okay, so I'm just going to put J for judgment. Yeah? So when it says in 1798, the hour of his judgment is come.
Is it is come or has come?
Is come.
So let's double check. Okay, there's enough is that is. Yeah?
Is coming.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so you tell me where to put the J, Sister Olivine.
You're dealing with the first angel's message.
Sorry?
We're dealing with the first angel's message. It says, fear God, give glory to him for the hour of his judgment.
No, I just said that. I just asked you to tell me where to put the
So
J.
I'm saying that you see all three components combined in that first.
I don't know what that means, but just tell me where to put a J.
I'll put it at...
Sorry, I'm not laughing at you, sorry.
No, I'm thinking...
Okay, that's fine, but you said it with such confidence, the combining and all of that. And I wanted to ask where you put a J.
No.
No what?
I'm thinking about all three.
That's fine, just tell me where to put the J. Because the hour of his judgment is come, so I just want to know where you put the J, where you put that judgment.
Can I do an explanation?
No, just tell me the answer.
Well, no, I can't give you that then, because if
Okay,
I don't explain that the judgment has
at the end of the explanation, I'll get the answer. So just give me the answer first, then you can explain.
There is an investigative judgment and there is an executive judgment, so I cannot just say...
Okay, that's fine. Tell me where you put JI.
JI for investigative? Where does it begin?
You just tell me where to put it.
Right where you have it.
It's in the middle of nowhere. Tell me where I want to place it upon a line. Where should I place it?
1844.
1844.
You can't put there 1844.
Just tell me where then. That's not difficult.
I'll put it at 1790.
Okay, so you want to put the judgment here. Brother Bob wants to put it here.
Yeah.
Yeah? So if you check... Sorry?
Isn't it progressive though?
I'm just asking where will you place the start of it? Yeah? So where would you put the end of it then?
1844.
Okay, so Sister Olivine is saying the investigative judgment in Revelation 14 verse 6 is 1798. And I don't think you can defend that with the spirit of prophecy easily. Because I think in half the papers that I've got, everybody says it's not that. The spirit of prophecy quotes that you're using show that it's not that.
That's the whole point of the disappointment, though, is that that's when that was starting instead of the second, coming. They were mistaken there. So wouldn't that start in 1844?
The investigative judgment.
Yeah. Because they were wrong. I mean, they thought the Lord was returning when in fact He was moving into the most holy place.
Okay, yeah, because you're picking up the investigative judgment in the moving from the holy place to the most holy place. You're using that traditional Adventist perspective, but she's not doing that. She's doing something crazy, something totally different. She's using a whole different line of logic to make this point. And this is the problem that we face. We don't even speak the same language as the church. Her JI isn't even the same JI that you're talking about. And I suspect it's not the same one that Brother Bob's talking about. It's a totally different thing.
I don't understand that.
This JI that who is that pointing to? Who's being judged? In the way that you was thinking about it. Who's the people that's happening to?
The judgment of the dead.
Okay, so you're saying this is dead people.
Yeah.
Sister Olivine, you're saying she's saying it's living people. It's totally two different
I
things.
thought that started at 9/11, though, as the judgment of the. I mean, no, I must not understand this then.
When did the judgment of the living begin?
9/11.
Sister Olivine?
Time of the end according.
In 1798, she says it began in 1798.
I don't know.
She's gonna add one. I'll do it for her. She's
Yes.
gonna say one thing. It's only typology.
Yes.
In type.
Yeah.
Whether, I'm not saying she's right, but I'm just saying this is her logic. The only reason I mention that is because when it says the hour of judgment is come, she says it is here today. But Adventists don't teach that. Okay, let me ask you this question, Sister Olivine. Who's making that statement in 1798? Poetic license. Who's making the statement in 1798 that the hour of judgment is come? Who's saying that? Miller. It's not. He doesn't literally say it there. That's the only point because he's 16 years old. He's saying that. Tell me where the J is for him. For Miller, where is his J when he makes that statement?
It would be future.
Yeah, I want to. You've got to put a waymark. Where?
1844?
No.
Or 43?
Where is it?
Vaguely, it's at 1844. You know,
Okay,
without
so-
the 43, 44.
Yeah, because I put 44 because I don't think he's putting it here where Adventists put it. So he's an Adventist. He thinks like an Adventist. So we don't even think like Millerites do. The Millerites take you to here. Adventists take you here. As if all have been saying, everyone's wrong, and we need to go back to here because we're looking at these things totally differently. And I don't think we realise that. Does everybody understand that? Yes. The point that I'm just making. I'm not explaining the logic behind it. I'm not even asking you to. But just to see the point, Miller is pointing you to 1844. Our church, in agreement with Miller, takes you to 1844. Ellen White does. Most of the Bible does. And Sister Olivine says, nope, they're all wrong. It's 1798.
Can they all be wrong when it's tight?
No, I mean this is literal. It's not. I don't get mixed up with that type there. I don't mean in the sense of type because it's a line. So a line is a real line.
And this is an example, you're saying, of the funneling that the Bible does and of pushing us to the end.
Yes, it pushes us to a different place. Let me ask another question now. So these are just thought provokers. Hopefully we're going to try and answer some of these questions. Where do you put the arrival of the third angel's message in this history? 3a. Because I've got 1a here. So I'll do it for you because we're all going to do this, 3a. Okay, so Sister Olivine's not going to answer this one. Is that correct or incorrect? Tyler? Just the answer, not the explanation why. Correct or incorrect?
Depends how you're looking at it, I guess.
That's not what he said.
I think it's correct. I think it's correct at one level.
Yeah.
Okay, so if it's correct at one level, it's then what? Then it's incorrect at one level.
At another, yeah.
So it's incorrect. So I don't know what we call ourselves, Daniel 11 people or whatever. So if you're a Daniel 11 person, is it incorrect or correct?
Being correct.
So incorrect if you're a Daniel 11 person. If you're if I say that, people get nervous now. If you're a traditional Adventist, is it correct or incorrect? It's correct. So it's correct or incorrect depending on who you are.
The way I understand it is because we understand that the first, second, and third angel's message that arrived from 1798 to 1844 is an imperfect fulfillment of the combined and repeated from 1989 to the close of probation in our history.
So let me ask you another question then. Was the first angel's message perfectly fulfilled in Millerite history?
Yes.
You said no. Sister Rod have been saying yes. You're saying?
Yes.
So some people are saying yes or no now. We're not even sure of our terminology. So some people are saying yes, it was perfectly fulfilled.
For that history. But,
so you agree with that?
But for ours, then it's a like a more perfect, I guess, because it's going to be combined and repeated. So it was fulfilled for them at their time, but it's going to be fulfilled for us in our time.
Was there a combining work that was done in the Millerite history of the messages? Okay. So I'm not trying to answer that question. The only reason I mentioned that it wasn't to put people on the spot. It was just to show this point here that I wanted to make here. So let's just quickly come down to here. 538. He's ruling supremely, so he's sitting on a throne. Yes. He's got his seat here. The papacy has his seat. So before we even go to the history of that, if you have a seat, what is that seat an indication of or a symbol of? What is a seat? We can't say power because we already said power is military strength. So can't use power. Kingdom, you own a kingdom. Yeah? So the seat would be then what?
Throne.
It'd be a throne, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Yeah? So he sits on his throne here in 330 and he's sitting on his throne here in 538. So he's sitting on the throne for 200 years. Can we see that? Yes? So that teaches us that at the most basic level, Adventists should have understood this, which is what Sister Olivia's question is. How did we miss this? That the sitting on the throne is a progressive work. Yeah? Because he's sitting on the throne and he's got all these subjects. And when he tells the subject to, says jump, and the subject doesn't jump, what's he going to do? In 330.
Or not, 330 is not going to do anything.
He's not going to do anything. Because he's got responsibility, isn't he? He's responsible for the kingdom. He's sitting on the throne. He's got responsibility, but no what? Sorry?
Doesn't have any power yet.
Power and authority.
He has no authority.
Authority, okay.
You've got responsibility, but no authority. So what does he need to receive? Authority. The last part of the verse says he needs to receive authority. Yeah? So this should teach us about the progressive nature of Bible prophecy. And it's not just some end time weird thing that we've invented. It's right there. And we, in this message, need to really become familiar with these ideas. Because part of the shaking that's going on, even though we might not conceptualize it this way, is a subtle attack upon the progressive nature of events. And what we end up doing is thinking about, we use concepts like typology, like this was a type of this, or we use phrases like it will be perfectly fulfilled, for instance. Yeah? So if we're not careful, we come to a wrong understanding of things, which is why I asked the provocative question, was the first angel's message perfectly fulfilled in Millerite history? I'll ask another one, was the second angel's message perfectly fulfilled in Millerite history? So people are saying no. Sorry? And that's why I'm asking the question, because it didn't say about the first, it says about the second, it says it was not, so it was an imperfect fulfillment, I think. So I'm asking, when we look at it, was it perfectly fulfilled or not?
It was for them.
It was perfectly fulfilled. And the reason why, and Ellen White says it isn't, if you said it was perfectly fulfilled for them, why does she say it wasn't perfectly fulfilled? What has she done?
She's taking it and repeating its work.
No, she's not repeating it. She's doing what? She's making it progressive, which is the word, that S word. She's making it sequential. Yeah, because she's done this, and she's made this the Millerite history and the history of the 144,000. It's a line. If that was a line, and the second began where? Began here, the second begins here, and it's going to be fulfilled in this history. Perfectly or imperfectly? Sorry? Perfectly, isn't it? Okay? It's going to be perfect. It's going to go all the way here. It's going to be perfectly fulfilled. But we approach the problem differently. We do this. Millerite history is the history, and our history is our history. And we say, it was imperfectly fulfilled here, and then it was perfectly fulfilled here. And that is not line upon line. So we use Spirit of Prophecy quotes, and we don't even use them in the way we're supposed to. Because if it was line upon line, you can't do that. What would you do? You have to put a break there. And if you're going to make a line upon line, you can't have half a job and a full job. It has to be perfect here for it to typify a perfect here. They both have to be the same. So it has to have been perfectly fulfilled in this history for it to be perfectly fulfilled in this history. But Ellen White is approaching the whole problem different. So it's a philosophical problem. And I want us to become familiar with that.
In Great Controversy, page 389, paragraph 2.
1 second. Great Controversy, 389, paragraph 2.
It says, the second angel's message of Revelation 14 was first preached in the summer of 1844, and it then had a more direct application to the churches of the United States, where the warning of the judgment had been most widely proclaimed and most generally rejected, and where the declension in the churches had been most rapid. But the message of the second angel did not reach its complete fulfillment in 1844. The churches then experienced a moral fall in consequence of their refusal of the light of the Advent message. But that fall was not complete. As they have continued to reject the special truths for this time, they have fallen lower and lower. Not yet, however, can it be said that Babylon is fallen, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. She has not yet made all nations do this. The spirit, the spirit of world conforming and indifference to the testing truth for our time exists and has been gaining ground in churches of the Protestant faith in all the countries of Christendom. And these churches are included in the solemn and terrible denunciation of the second angel. But the work of apostasy has not yet reached its culmination.
And how do you read all of that in the context of what we've just spoken?
Yeah.
What's your point?
The point of the second angel's message not having its perfect fulfillment in Millerite's history and it extending into our time.
So to do that, you have to create that, put that line back in, don't you? I'm wondering how you read that verse. Are you saying you have to do this? Or are you saying you can still break it and get that passage to work?
I don't know.
Okay. So hopefully we're going to get back to the nature of man, because I want to still pick up some thoughts on that. In summary, we can show that pagan Rome and France are the same thing at one level, because the horns are on the head, Daniel 7. We've seen that you've got a threefold union and a twofold union. It's the dragon, the beast, the false prophet, United States, the UN and the papacy. But both of these are governments. There's a singular church. So you've got a church-state union at the end of the world. Revelation 17 clearly shows us that. We did a line that spoke about 538 to 1798, where the papacy is ruling. And I asked the application at the end of the world. We've got Sunday law, close of probation, Daniel 12:1. This is the 1 hour that it rules with the kings. Then I asked the question, so all of this was to show that the United States fulfills the role of France and pagan Rome simultaneously. Not even sequentially, simultaneously. So without going all into the, rehashing that out, that's the point that I wanted us to see, that it fulfills both roles. The history here of 538 to 1798, the Dark Ages, is going to be repeated at the end of the world. Why is it a threefold union at the end of the world? Because there was a threefold union in the Dark Ages. There's a threefold union in the 1260. There has to be a threefold union at the end of the world. Yeah? And then we spoke about a little bit of how we see judgment and how the Millerite line works, and that we approach the problem completely differently to both the Millerites and Adventism, and even the way it's written in both the Spirit Prophecy and the Bible. So we have a formidable task ahead of us. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your goodness and your watch care over us. Lord, as we grapple with our own insecurities, our own preconceived ideas, our own fears and worries, we ask, Lord, that you would give us grace and strength to work through these problems. Lord, may we leave no stone unturned in our own thinking, so that we might become established in the present truth. Please help us, please be with us and guide us, and give us clarity on the message that you want us to understand and to share with your people. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.